What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 327 of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, and this is the Hot Tags edition of the week, where I will be breaking down some of the current events, news, gossip, rumors, and anything else that went down in the world of professional wrestling and sports entertainment over the past couple of days. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Make sure that you let me know what your comments are in the comments section below. That's why they're called the comments. And also, as I mentioned on the last recording, let me know what you think about the audio quality. I had mentioned before we had a bit of a Skype issue. I had a bit of a Skype issue, and it messed up my audio settings. So I'm still trying to figure out what they were originally. I probably should have written them down. I think I've kind of got them sorted out now. I think I know where I stand, but I don't know for sure 100%. So maybe I sound a little hot on the mic. Maybe I'm a little bit low, and that'll change too when I have other people on, and we'll just have to kind of figure this out a little bit. So let me know what you think, and we'll try to sort it all out. This is a busy ass week, and I've got so many different articles to do and stuff like that, and I thought to myself, man, I'm not going to have any hot tags this week all that much. And then Monday happened. And Monday was just bam, 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 one thing after another. So we do have a little bit of stuff that carries over from a little bit earlier on in the week, and I guess we might as well start there because there's a lot of things that actually are kind of combined together. 3 different injuries to talk about, and the fourth one actually being kind of a previous injury or whatever, but we'll talk about the fourth one later. First things first, the Rey Mysterio situation in WWE. The reports were, at least according to things I was reading, Rey Mysterio was potentially signing with WWE and possibly even being looked at as a potential opponent for John Cena at WrestleMania, depending on if he could still wrestle The Undertaker or if Samoa Joe was available. Rey Mysterio was at least a backup option. I don't buy into that. I don't think that was necessarily true. It's possible, but I don't think that that's necessarily true. It's not going to happen now because apparently he tore his bicep. He hasn't gotten fully evaluated yet, according to the dirt sheets that I've read and stuff, but if he is suffering from that kind of an injury, that obviously puts him on the shelf. Not only puts him on the shelf long enough that WWE might not necessarily want to sign a deal from him, but it would also definitely take him out of the running for WrestleMania. So I don't think that is necessarily what was going to happen, was a WrestleMania match against John Cena, but if he was being looked at as somebody who could be brought into the mix in like a semi-regular basis or something like that, and he can't, then that sucks. The best case scenario, of course, is that they check him out and he didn't actually tear his bicep and he can come back sooner and stuff. But you know what? As much as I hate to say it, if we were going to get John Cena versus Rey Mysterio, I'd rather the injury happen now than to happen after WrestleMania, because I'd rather see a different match at WrestleMania. I would rather see that potential Samoa Joe match. I would rather see the Undertaker match, or something that I just totally don't even see coming. Maybe John Cena works with, well, if I didn't see it coming, then I wouldn't be able to predict it, right? I guess that's the case, right? Yeah, I'm not too interested in a John Cena Rey Mysterio match. They did have a really good match on Monday Night Raw before, but it's not something that I'm super looking forward to. Another injury, though, is from Bobby Fish. He suffered a knee injury at the NXT Live event from the other day, and that obviously puts into question his ability to perform at the next TakeOver. TakeOver Orlando. Wow, I was going to go back in time. TakeOver New Orleans is set to, of course, be the day before WrestleMania, and they had announced ahead of time already that the winners of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic would get a title shot for the tag team titles at NXT TakeOver New Orleans. The good thing about this is if it is a knee injury that puts him on the shelf, they do have a backup option. They have done the Freebird rule in WWE long enough that it's not going to be too weird if Adam Cole takes that spot, and we could end up having Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly. I don't think that whoever was going to win those tag titles anyway. And that sucks for Bobby Fish, obviously. If he is out for however long he is out, then that's terrible. But it's not something that changes the entire card around. It's not something that's like, oh, damn, like we just lost Brock Lesnar for the fucking main event of WrestleMania or something like that, you know? The show can move on. They can tweak things a little bit. They can make it a storyline. They can put Adam Cole in. They can figure out ways around this. So I think that everything will be okay. Montez Ford has also suffered an injury. This one is a mouth injury, and the reports that I had been seeing said that it might be something tooth-related, which is something that I guess you need to take into account, that, sometimes you might just have like a toothache or something like that, and it's not actually that he took a big boot in the mouth and got all fucked up and his jaw's broken or something like that. So I assume that if that's the case, he's probably not going to be out for too long. It's probably not going to affect the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic all that much either. And who knows, maybe they were going to get eliminated in the next round. I don't know. Another injury-related kind of thing is the CM Punk lawsuit. That has been going on for a couple of years now, and the latest scuttlebutt about it is that it is going to trial. And that is not good for a lot of people involved, because that is something that you don't really want to see, because it's a lot easier to just kind of handle things before going to court and doing a bunch of different things like that. But that could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on your point of view. Who do you think that you support? Who are you against? I don't really know. I kind of side a little bit on both. I kind of think that WWE is sometimes a little bit too harsh, and sometimes that they get you to work through the pain. But at the same time, I also kind of think that WWE tries their best, and that sometimes things are just flukes. And I don't think that WWE would necessarily neglect something, knowing full well that it could, blow up in their face at another future point. And I don't hate CM Punk, and I think that sometimes, even though I think that he can come off a little bit like a complainer in certain scenarios, that just because you do that in certain scenarios doesn't mean that you always are, and doesn't mean that you're not justified, you know what I mean? So since we don't know the specifics, it's hard to really take a side, but that is something that's going on, and that could affect not only WWE, but it could affect CM Punk. Obviously, it affects Colt Cabana, because he is involved in this too. And we might see some kind of things happening about this. I don't know. Let's talk about some pay-per-view stuff, though. Actually, more specifically, not necessarily all just pay-per-views, but just some events in general. We do have 3 pay-per-views that WWE have put out there some more information about. They have confirmed that NXT TakeOver Chicago is happening before Money in the Bank. Both of those, Money in the Bank and TakeOver, are going to be at the Allstate Arena in Chicago. So that brings back NXT TakeOver Chicago. Good that they do that. I mean, I like the logo, I guess. You know what I mean? That there's no real oh man, that's something different compared to what happens with WarGames. WarGames is apparently coming back. The ticket sales for that are reporting that that is what's going to happen for NXT TakeOver Los Angeles, which is going to be the one before the Survivor Series pay-per-view. So I wouldn't trust 100% that that's the case, because they could tweak it, It wasn't called NXT TakeOver WarGames the last time around, and suddenly it just became WarGames. So there is a chance that WarGames doesn't return. However, it ended up being a good enough event, and I think that they liked it, and I think that they realized that they kind of enjoyed doing the WarGames concept. And with that in mind, I wouldn't be too shocked if they said, why don't we make this kind of a regular thing? We can have the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic be something, we could have the WarGames be something, and play around with a little bit here and there. As far as Money in the Bank goes, though, there is now reports of something that I expected ahead of time, and something that I was really hoping for, which is that there's going to be both a male and a female Money in the Bank ladder match, 2 separate ones, of course, and that they're both going to involve superstars from both sides of the rosters. So Raw and SmackDown women, Raw and SmackDown men competing for one briefcase. That is the best way to do about things. I do not think it's a good idea to have a Raw briefcase and a SmackDown briefcase, especially if you were to have 4 of them. You certainly wouldn't need 4 Money in the Bank ladder matches and 4 briefcases. That would be ridiculous. Plus, when you only have one and it's like a co-branded type of thing, you open up the possibility that somebody can jump the brand. And I always thought that that was super cool, because one of my favorite cash-ins of all time, if not my favorite, was when Kennedy lost to Edge, and then Edge cashed in on Undertaker. He went from the Monday Night Raw roster over to the SmackDown roster, cashed in on Taker, who had fought Batista in a cage match, and then Mark Henry attacked him afterward. So that really was just fucking awesome. And I like to see that kind of stuff every once in a while. Doesn't need to happen all the time, and it shouldn't happen all the time because then it's expected. But if you have one Money in the Bank and you can go between the rosters, that's a good idea. So that is very good. Some more information about the All In show, if you are following the indie side of things. That is the one that's being funded by Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks. Well, they know exactly when it's going to be happening now. That is going to be September 1st. And it's going to be at the Sears Center Arena in Hoffman Estates, Illinois. Apparently that can seat a little over 1,000 people, yeah. A little over 11,000 people. And no information about the card itself yet, but I mean, it's September, so they're not going to know what the card is, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think that is going to be a very important show for the indie scene, because that is probably going to include anybody who is anybody. I would assume that Austin Aries is probably going to be on it. I'm assuming that Jack Swagger will probably be on it. Maybe John Morrison, depending on if those people can actually work, because if they work with Impact, if they work with Lucha Underground, you know, you might not be able to necessarily, but I think that is something that you should take into account, that we could see some big names in there, and maybe that's where a Neville pops up. Although the current report is that he might be returning, and the reason that's not a hot tag is because I just don't necessarily trust any of those reports anymore. Yeah, I think that we can see a lot of big names on this All-In card. A lot of big names. And I would not be shocked at all if they're able to actually fit that capacity. They could figure it out. You know, they can get it sorted out, I think. They got time, too. That's the other thing. September, you got a bunch of different months that you can plan this out. You can build up a lot of different momentum for it. You can bring in some people from New Japan, possibly, and you know, the more time that goes on, the more people are aware of New Japan and stuff. Maybe even Chris Jericho pops up. Maybe even CM Punk pops up, because it is going to be a little bit away from Chicago. And I do think that that's a possibility. I do think that CM Punk can pop up there. Something to be interested about. Now, last week we had talked about, I think we talked about this last week. Maybe it was the week before. Maybe I actually didn't even talk about it. I don't know. Where there is this plan in place where they'll do a global warning event, and that'll be in Australia. More reports is that they have actually said that, yes, they are going to be doing that. It's going to be in, I think it was October, maybe it's September, somewhere around there. No reports on what it actually is, though they haven't actually called it global warning on WWE TV, but they did say we are doing an event there. That's something that we're doing. So that'll happen in the future. More reports on that when it comes about. But they just randomly added another thing on here, and it's Saudi Arabia. It is April 27th, and bam, Greatest Royal Rumble. What? That's what they're calling it. It is going to have 50 superstars, and it, as far as I'm aware, it doesn't get recorded, it doesn't get put on the network, so I don't know if we can really necessarily watch it. It would make sense in my mind if that actually is recorded and we do get to watch it, but they haven't said really pretty much anything. 50 superstars, it's called the Greatest Royal Rumble. Since it's April 27th, it's obviously not for a title shot at WrestleMania, but maybe it's for a title shot at Backlash or something like that, because I think Backlash comes in the beginning of May, and you're going to have both rosters on the card. So 50 superstars. Now that means you're definitely going to see everybody on the card that you can possibly see. So your Bo Dallases and your Curtis Axels, they're definitely going to be involved. I'm assuming that we're going to see some NXT talent, possibly even some local talent if they could bring some other people into the mix. But you are going to see, like, Jeet Rama. He will be in this. You have to put him in it, essentially. And I know that a lot of people are going to jump right to the gun and say, well, this is probably Jinder Mahal, when I don't think so necessarily. I'm going to try to write up some articles about this or something, and I'll break down my thoughts a little bit more on that, but I don't think that it's such a guarantee. And I'm really kind of curious what they end up doing with this, but that's April 27th. We have well over a month before that comes. So we'll see, and I'll fill you in on anything I need to fill you in on. Hillbilly Jim is going to be inducted into this year's class of the Hall of Fame, which is very well deserved, I think. Hillbilly Jim is the type of guy that nobody really brings up all that often, but if you were alive during that era, and that you actually like followed the product and stuff, he was probably one of your favorites. Now, I wasn't really watching around that time. It's a little bit too beyond my age. But at the same time, I grew up where Hillbilly Jim was the era before I started watching, essentially. And knowing that, I went back in time. I saw a bunch of different old tapes, you know, from the 80s and such. And Hillbilly Jim was the type of guy that I was just kind of like, yeah, he's a fun character. He's a big, tough-looking dude. So I always liked Hillbilly Jim to a certain extent. I'm not going to be able to tell you his top 10 best matches or anything like that, but I think that he seems like a very nice guy on top of that. I always felt a little bit bad that he was somebody who wasn't really into the mix for the Legends house. He was kind of like the only one there that wasn't in the Hall of Fame and stuff. Now he gets to be in the Hall of Fame. Well deserved, I think. And I will, of course, hold off some more talk about that when we do the Wrestling with the Past. I don't know when we're going to do that because I have to figure out my schedule and stuff like that over the next couple of weeks, and we're running out of time. Lots of things to do. I am so overbooked. At least this hot tag is something that I don't need to talk that much about. Chloe and Halle are going to be performing America the Beautiful at WrestleMania 34. I don't know who Chloe is. I don't know who Halle is. And if they wouldn't have said that, Chloe and Halle, earlier on Monday Night Raw, I would have thought that it was Chloe X Halle. I would have thought that that would have been like a band or something like that. Like that's their name. But no, that's the two of them. No idea who they are. Never heard of them in my entire life. Either that means I'm old or I'm just completely out of touch. But this means nothing to me. I hope they do a good job. And that's it. So the last thing to talk about for this week, as far as the hot tags go, from 1:30 in the morning. Or actually, no, we have two things to talk about. I totally forgot about one of them. And now you might hear myself clicking on that kind of stuff because I forgot to add that into the mix. So real quick, the thoughts on the most recent episode of the ride-along show that was the Magical Miztery Tour. That's what it's called. It was split between the Miztery and the Revival. And you can skip it. It was not all that entertaining to me in the slightest bit for the most part. They ate some lobster and some steak and stuff, and that made me hungry. The crab cake looked pretty good and shit, but they really didn't talk about all that much, and they even actually reference, the Miztery referenced the idea that the Revival section probably sucks, and yeah, that is the worst part. They really just, this is an incredibly bland episode. So unless you are a huge fan of either side of those three performers in the Miztery, the Miztery limo, or the two in the Revival car, if you really, really care, go ahead and check it out. If you are not like a super fan, don't waste your time. It's like 20 minutes of nothing. So the actual final one that we're going to talk about here is that there's a report going around that there is going to be a new set of titles that are going to be added to the roster post-WrestleMania. Now, when I saw that headline, I was thinking to myself, oh man, is this going to be like the women's mid-card title, or is it going to be like the European title? Is this going to be the Asian championship that we've heard about or anything like that? Because I think we have too many titles as it is right now. And this one is actually going to be, if the reports end up being true, the Cruiserweight Tag Team Championship, which I think is a mistake. As I just said a second ago, I think we have too many titles as it is, and I don't think that the Cruiserweight division has enough people in it to actually sustain a tag team division. Because if you have certain people teaming up, it kind of forces you to not be able to do the singles matches as much. As it is right now, nobody is 100% a partner with anybody else. You've got your friends, and you've got your allies, and you've got your people that you work against. Like Mustafa Ali is more likely to team with Cedric Alexander and fight like Tony Nese and Drew Gulak than for Gulak and, Kalisto to fight certain people or something like that. And we know that we've got the three masked stars, the Lince Dorado, Kalisto, and Grand Metalik dynamic. So I think that that's probably one of the reasons why they're trying to do this, is they're probably just like, well, why don't we throw them in there? But I don't think that we need a tag team title for that. And if 205 Live had maybe another how much more would you need? Maybe another 10 people onto the roster and another hour onto the show. Then yeah, then you can kind of talk about doing a 205 Live tag team division. But right now, I don't think it's a good idea, and I hope that the titles don't look ugly too, because that's something that's always in the possibility. So I don't really like it. It wouldn't be the end of the world if they created it, but I don't think it's going to help. I think it's only going to hurt. So I want to know what you guys have to say about that and about everything else. Drop your comments in the comment section below. As I mentioned before, let me know about the audio quality in this. Was it a little too hot? Do I need to lower it? Whatever the case may be. Also, be aware that the next time that you guys are going to be hearing me is going to be the Fastlane predictions, either recorded on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on how many matches are officially announced and my schedule and everything else like that. That's going to be coming up, and if you want to be aware of when that gets posted, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel and ring the bell for notifications. You could also follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SmarkOutMoment, and obviously you can check out SmarkOutMoment.com itself, the RSS feed and stuff like that. Be aware of Fanboys Anonymous content, because this week Jessica Jones Season 2 is coming out, so I'm going to binge watch that. And what I always do when it comes to that, if you are a fan of like the Marvel shows and stuff, what I do with it is on the website, I do a running commentary. I watch the episodes and I just post a perpetual, like, whatever stream of consciousness thoughts that I'm thinking. Then eventually at the end of it, I do a full season recap and stuff like that. And I've, in the past, binge watched as much as I could. I don't think I'm going to have the time to be able to just like binge watch 13 straight hours of that this time around. But maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll be able to tough it out. Plenty of articles coming your way, plenty of other things like that. I have also been working on a lot of future ideas of different stories, of different segments to talk about, potentially producing in the future, like that Mount Rushmore one and one more match and different things like that. So I've been working on the logos for that and trying to figure some things out like that. Trying to figure out some ways to boost up the weekly articles as well. And what else we got going on that you should be aware of? Well, you know what? That's probably good enough for now, at the very least. Don't want to hit everybody with too much things at once. Oh, the Smark Madness tournament is coming up. Shit, 2 days from now, on the 8th, or possibly on the 7th. I don't remember which day I scheduled that for. So Smark Madness is starting. That's the best gimmick match stipulations of all time. Go ahead and vote on that. Also pay attention to the upcoming WWE Hall of Fame drinking game rules. I wrote those up the other day, and I've got that scheduled for something later on in this month. Plenty of shit going on. I said Wrestling with the Past is coming up. I got to do the Smark Out Moment Hall of Fame at some point. We've got Fantasy Booking WrestleMania 34. We've got the mailbag. All this stuff's happening, and then we start getting into TakeOver, and we start getting into WrestleMania, and oh man, it's going to be a hell of a month. So strap in and join me on the ride, will you? And that's it for this week, everybody. Thanks for listening. As I mentioned before, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and I'm being counted out.